Show, and I'm Juan Williams, along with Jedediah Bila, Jesse Waters, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. He's here. It's 5 o'clock in New York City. This is The Five. A Fox News alert. The Senate scrambling as the clock ticks to avoid a partial government shutdown at midnight tonight. A live look at the Senate floor where Republicans are attempting to move forward on a procedural vote, but it's unclear if they have the numbers to go forward. Over at the White House, the president trying to place the potential blame at Democrats' feet.
It's really up to the Democrats, totally up to the Democrats as to whether or not we have a shutdown. I hope we don't, but we're totally prepared for a very long shutdown. And this is our only chance that we'll ever have, in our opinion, because of the world and the way it breaks out, to get great border security.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying Trump would be at fault and Democrats will not be budging on any extra funding for the border wall.
President Trump, you will not get your wall. Abandon your shutdown strategy. You're not getting the wall today, next week, or on January 3rd when Democrats take control of the House.
Jesse, everybody's kind of figure out what's the end game here. How does the president play out the strategy? What do you think?
I don't see the end game, Juan. I really don't. I mean, if he has a bill that gets to his desk and it doesn't have wall funding, he vetoes it or he signs it and he says, I tried. But if he vetoes it, it just goes back and then everything gets shut down. And then maybe it's shut down for a week at most, and then the Democrats come in and take over, and they never send him anything with any wall funding, and you're back to square one. So I don't see the end game. I guess maybe he's just trying to signal to the people that he's going to fight, but he has to find more creative ways in the budget to build this wall. The wall has to be built. And that's his signature promise. And he wasted the first time with it, and McConnell didn't deliver the first opportunity, and it's a shame. But if they get rid of the filibuster, which they won't, you could get a wall. You could get a lot of stuff. The other side would get stuff. This side would get stuff. But the way that the system's designed in the Senate, 60 votes for these spending bills, you're never going to get what you want. And they're just going to use the shutdown as leverage time and time again, and then we have to talk about how boring it is.
So, Dana, let's not talk about it's boring, because, in fact, it's a hot issue in public opinion. Quinnipiac has a poll out, 54-43, no need for a wall. 62% of Americans opposed to a shutdown. But among Republicans, 59-33 say yes to the wall.
Right, but also I would imagine that 60% of Democrats say,
oh, it's more than
right.
that.
I mean,
yeah.
it's like it's the same. So it's quite partisan. Yeah. I thought that the language that Ted Cruz used earlier today was interesting. I think you'll hear more of it coming from Republicans, that the Democrats are extreme and they're partisan, and that the president is the one who is middle of the road on this and commonsensical. Some of them pointing back to February, though. Remember when the president had the cameras in and it was in the cabinet room and it was that most amazing meeting that anyone ever seen? That deal at the time would have given like $25 billion, plus it had the DACA fix. So it's like you keep going back like, gosh, maybe that was the deal that they should have had and taken back then. But the Democrats are so dug in on saying no that I just read that Brian Schatz, the senator from Hawaii, he had left. It's an 11-hour flight to Hawaii. Yeah. He flew back 11 hours just to vote no. So everyone is quite dug in.
You know, Greg, I know that your position is, things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but so
that is my position, Juan. My position. Things happen. That's the name of my new show on right? Fox Nation. Things happen.
Things happen. But it's a lot making a lot of people on conservative talk radio, the Ann Coulters, the Rush Limbaughs, right? They're like, what are you doing? You can't allow the Democrats to win.
Right.
What would Greg Gutfeld advise President Trump to do?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say that
he's watching.
I know. Well, no, you know what? Okay, here's when I listen to this, I find this to be very foolish. It reminds me, and I hate to use this, the Yanni or Laurel thing. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah.
So
it was blue.
Trump has managed to get Democrats to agree that having a strong border is important, because whenever they get in the conversation, all the Democrats, including you, Juan, have said it. I want a strong border. Everybody's saying it. So he gets everybody to say it. Then he goes, okay, a wall. And they go, no, not a wall. So it's they actually both sides agree, but the Democrats are hung up on language. They are hung up on language because it's the word. It's the word wall. So might I quote somebody?
Scott?
Yes, Scott Adams. Why not adjust the language? If it's a wall or if it's a fence, who cares? Call it a wence. Right? That's a Scott Adams.
President Trump wants people to call it steel slats.
Well, this is amazing to me. Steel slats sounds fantastic to me. That sounds like something pretty cool. You can move it around. But, you know, Democrats will say that this is the wrong way to cut immigration, right? Because most of the illegal immigration is overstayed visas, right? Yeah. That's like saying I don't like a fork because it won't cut my meat. Well, you have a knife for that. So you have a fork and a knife. So you can have a wall, strong border, and then you could address that other stuff. So the arguments are either emotional, flawed, or pig-headed. When everybody wants the same thing, but they won't give in.
So, Jedediah, if we do have a shutdown at midnight, you're going to see, I think it's 800,000 federal workers. 47% of them will not even come to work. The rest come to work. They won't be paid until the government reopens.
At which point they'll get their back pay.
Right, but then you have federal contractors out of work too. The State Department says they'll keep doing visas. Restrooms, some of the federal parks are going to be closed. What do you think is going to be the reaction?
Well, I think from the right, I mean, people got very nervous when they thought he wasn't going to dig his heels in, when he kind of wavered for a second and they thought, oh, he said he wouldn't be afraid to shut the government down. Now he is afraid. I think he's already done what he needs to do. Regardless of how this works out, he's now going to be the guy who was willing to go through with the government shutdown to dig his heels in and say, I'm willing to do that partial government shutdown. He's also proving that he's willing to take on the language and say, this is a Democrat shutdown. He's taken on the language when it comes to what a shutdown actually looks like, that it's not this, Armageddon that the left always paints it as, that so many essential government functions still keep working. I just think it's interesting. I watched Chuck Schumer, and he says, you're not going to get your wall, as if the wall is for President Trump. The wall is for the United States of America. It's for our national security. It's to address the humanitarian crisis at the border. We're talking about resources for Border Patrol agents. You just had a little girl die crossing in horrific conditions. So this idea that he's not giving him the money to spite Trump, you're not spiting Trump. You're spiting American citizens, and you're spiting all of those poor people who are being incentivized to come and cross this border under these horrific conditions. So I think Democrats should take a minute and really reflect on that. And I know it sounds good to oppose the wall, but think about what you're actually opposing, which is addressing national security and the humanitarian crisis that's happening at the border. So I think he's already done a lot of what he had to do.
So, Jedediah, you are so lucky. It's like Santa delivered for you because you got a Democrat at the table. So I would say to you, hey, Jedediah, I think President Trump said Mexico's going to pay for the wall.
Yeah, well, and I said a million times he should have never been on record saying that because it was highly unlikely that was going to happen. But the bottom line is that, you have people opening GoFundMe accounts in this country to say, you know what, if the government's not going to do it, we're going to do it. That shouldn't be the case. The primary responsibility of the government is to protect its citizens, and that includes border security.
Okay, so one final question on this for everybody. So Jesse laid out a potential endgame, a way that the president could get out of it, which is to say, look, I really did my best. I have tried with these Democrats. I even went to the point, I think Jedediah picked up on this, of saying we're going to shut down the government. Yeah. So will Rush Limbaugh, the Drudge Report, Breitbart, will people like that say, you know what, Mr. President, you did your best with those doggone Democrats?
Yeah, listen, if he goes all out and does what he can, as much as he can, and you look at Mitch McConnell or you look at the House Republicans and you say, you know what, they didn't deliver with the 2 years they had majorities, but even then you still need 60 votes. You still need 60 votes. You got to nuke it. That's what you got to do. You got a nuke option or nothing.
Hey, Greg, when he starts hammering the table,
scares me a little. Scares me a little. It does wake me up, though. It is watching politicians debate over the wall is like watching Dana and I try to get something down from a high shelf because there is no expertise, right? And I think that was the mistake at the beginning of this, was not introducing expertise into this problem. Instead, it started with a price. It's like if you were going to go renovate your house, you don't say, I'm going to spend this. No, you're going to figure out what you want to renovate. Do I need a table here? Do I need a pot? And then you come up with a budget. This is I was going to say ass backwards. Can I say that?
Yeah.
You can say it either way.
Okay. So anyway, I think what we needed is like engineering expertise. Somebody that says, okay, this is what, maybe you have a wall here, maybe you don't have a wall here, and then you come up with it. But instead, we started from the reverse. So that might be a compromise.
Well, how about our public relations expert, Ms. Perino? What would you suggest?
Well, look, I don't know how it's going to come down, but I do think that there was something that the president and his administration was able to do yesterday that got buried. It didn't get enough attention. It was actually quite impressive, very impressive. Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen, announced that they have reached this deal with Mexico. Well, it's not a deal. They basically said to Mexico, they're going to basically house or hold the asylum seekers. So if you are a migrant, you come across, you get processed, but then you wait in Mexico. That's a really big deal. And the administration has done lots of different things that are a part of the whole cutlery set.
Yes.
Right? So there's a spoon, a knife, a fork, the dessert spoon, everything. They try to do all of
that smaller knife?
There's a lot of things that they're doing outside of the wall that could either give them some cover with their base, but also to let the American people know, like, they're not just waiting for $5 billion for steel slats for a wall. They actually, that's really impressive. And she deserves some credit for that. Of course, it got buried because of all the other breaking news.
Sure, and also the Supreme Court had a ruling, Jedediah, that said the administration cannot put a cap on the number of people seeking asylum. It was an interesting vote because the Chief Justice, John Roberts, voted with the liberals against the administration.
Right, that is true as well. And I would also say about the dollar value, I think it's interesting there's been a lot of debate about the $5 billion. People need to remember he's not just pulling that number out of thin air. I mean, he's talking to Border Patrol agents, he's talking to people at the border, and they're telling him this is what we need, this is what's insufficient. So, you know, Chuck Schumer doesn't get to decide what's appropriate amount of money, and frankly, neither does Donald Trump. He is working with the people on the border. So these numbers exist for a reason, because he's getting it from the people who are there, trying to process people, trying to get them in buses in these remote areas to other locations, trying to make sure that the proper medical supplies are there, and also trying to contain what's going on. So that number, there's a reason that $5 billion in terms of a monetary value even exists.
By the way, Greg, does he go to Mar-a-Lago if the government shuts down?
Well, I'll talk to him later because actually I'm hitching a ride with him.
Is that right?
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
nice.
On his sleigh?
Well, actually, I serve drinks on the plane.
On the sleigh ride. All right. The president's critics lining up to take shots after James Mattis resigns at the Pentagon. Trump's response? You got to stay with us to hear it. That's next on The Five.
This is how we roll.
Resignation of Defense Secretary James Mattis after the president's decision to withdraw troops from Syria, causing some panic among Trump's critics.
If you are worried tonight, you should be.
You have America, Mika, in retreat across the globe, and the most extraordinary resignation in modern American history.
I am shaken by the resignation of General Mattis.
I think maybe this is the first time I've actually been frightened for the country. Frightened, really. In these almost 2 years.
It just raises the question as to whether or not the president whether the wheels are on over here at the White House.
President Trump is pushing back against those who say the troop pullout in Syria will embolden the Islamic State, tweeting, "I've done more damage to ISIS than all recent presidents, not even close," which is true because ISIS started under President Obama, and then President Trump got him into this place. But here's the thing, Greg. A lot of critics of President Trump have been demanding that someone in the administration resign on principle.
Right, they get it.
And then he resigned on principle, and now they're in a panic.
And I'm amazed that Michael Moore is so distraught that James Mattis is leaving. Who knew he was such a fan of Mad Dog? But it's like they're all in the most boring sequel of Scream. These networks have become 24-hour hysteria channels. The pauses, the dramatic pauses. You're so phony when you do that. And could it be, could it be that Mattis actually fulfilled the job that he was supposed to do, and now Trump wants somebody else to do a different job? Like if you read the letter, Mattis said, we went in there, we did this, we helped bolster the military, we did this, we did this. These are all the things that he was supposed to do, and now Trump's, no, I want somebody else. Besides the fact that CNN claims the world has been shaken, but Obama went through 3, right? Secretaries, defense secretaries? In less time. They had shorter periods. And I don't remember CNN having, a mental meltdown on TV It's beautiful.
Then it was just a transition.
It was a transition.
Well, and at the time, all of those as I mentioned yesterday, President Obama's national security team all said in their books that they wrote afterwards that they were against what President Obama decided because they had advised something differently on Syria, but they didn't resign.
I don't think it's so strange to have someone who's working with you toward achieving things and you achieve some stuff together and then you start to see things differently. And it's really hard when you have someone in a position like that when you're talking about national security. If you want to go this way and he wants to go this way, you can't really work together. So it seems really adult what happened, which like they both sat down and said, look, I don't see the future the way you do. I don't want to proceed that way.
Yeah,
I don't
and in
think we're a
fact,
good
you
fit.
say that apparently their meeting was, this was just the reporting, was for 45 minutes, Jesse. So that would indicate they at least had a discussion. It wasn't like a knockdown drag out.
I'm just upset we're going to lose such a great nickname.
Yeah.
Mad Dog Mattis, man, rest in peace. That nickname's one of the best that Trump ever gave. I think Greg's right. I think what happened is Obama pulled out too soon, created ISIS. We had to go in. Trump bombed the hell out of them with Mattis's help. They did the job. Mattis wanted to stay a little longer, hold the allies' hands, and make sure they won the peace. Trump said, no, we get in, we get out, goodbye. And Mattis didn't agree with that. And I think the president deserves to have someone who's his Secretary of Defense that believes in his philosophy. With that said, I kind of concede both things. Listen, you don't want to give the Iranians and the Russians free reign over that area, and there's a lot of resources to protect in terms of energy, and you don't want to abandon your allies. But on the other hand, do we really need to be there forever in Syria, spending more blood and treasure with a mission that's really undefined, or fighting the Kurds with the Kurds, our national security interests? Really, what is the point? So we can come out and then go back in. It happens all the time. Are we going to be surprised if there's more chaos in the Middle East? We're going to have to go back and clean it up? I mean, or we're just going to stay there forever? Why don't we just stay there forever? I think that's what the president's thinking.
All right, Juan?
Well, I'm surprised at this conversation because what I'm reading is conservatives, Republicans, upset with this, and they love Mattis, and you hear people like Mitch McConnell say he is greatly distressed. Ben Sasse, the senator from Nebraska, said this is a very sad day for America when you have a real military hero, someone with great respect at the Pentagon, pushed out on principle. And the principle, and I think that's the distinguishing feature here, yeah, you have people move on in administrations, but he sent a letter that indicated that American alliances are important in the post-World War II era and continue to be important, and that we should be battling ISIS on the ground and preventing them from attacking us here at home. So if you're asking, Jesse, what is the purpose? Why are we there? Gee, the Middle East is a tough neighborhood.
You are making the exact argument that Republicans made to stay and win the peace in Iraq.
No.
But Obama went out and pulled out all the troops and let ISIS take over.
Are you kidding
It's also
me?
a lot of people who are very hawkish, who are Republicans, who are very hawkish, are worried that now he's going to be retreating. You know,
well, also, I think
it comes out of,
I think their criticism comes out of a place of concern and of support for the president, not that, not the panic that you saw in the montage.
I do think that it's something about an achievement of one priority, and now it's moving on to another one that maybe we aren't sure about. But I think there is you should have a concern about the resurgence of ISIS or the emergence of something worse. We should always be thinking about that. But I think, and I said this yesterday, Donald Trump's head is always going to be in that space because this is a guy who not only wanted to kill terrorists, but he wanted to kill their families. So I think that this is not somebody that would say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice the safety of a country, you know, on a whim. I think to Jesse's point, you can go back in, you can come back out. It was 2,000 troops. This is not a huge deal. Mattis performed an amazing job, but now Trump wants a different guy for a different job.
And also, people read into that letter and psychoanalyzed. The first time I read that letter, I thought it was a respectful tribute. Mattis was laying out his views. Then I noticed people started digging into it. Oh, he's spiting and digging at Trump. And then I looked at it from that perspective, and I said, wow, people are really going out of their way to look for something where this was a guy who couldn't stand Trump. Maybe it's just two people who see a different agenda and a different worldview and a different way of moving forward.
Well, you know what's interesting here? The Russians congratulated.
All right.
That's the other argument. Oh, the Russians. It's like, you know, this isn't about the Russians.
Yeah, but what about
the Kurds? The American troops?
What about the Kurds who are our allies? What about
then go to the next step.
What about the American allies in the Middle East?
Go to the next step then. Right. Don't just say that. Just say well, okay, what about them? No, then say the next step is saying, what about them? If something were to happen, we'll be there.
Right.
Wow.
That's what you say.
Okay,
All right.
so that's a big
We gotta
bet.
go. More of the border battle raging on Capitol Hill up next.
1-844-BRAVEST or go to tunneltotowers.org.
Have you forgotten?
This is a Fox News alert. Negotiations underway on a potential deal to avoid a partial government shutdown. Let's go to John Roberts with the latest.
Hey, Jedediah, good afternoon to you. This is going to be announced in the Senate floor in just a couple of minutes by Senator Mitch McConnell. But what we understand happened earlier today, and this is where the Vice President and Mick Mulvaney and Jared Kushner were also involved, is that there was an agreement that was made between the Majority Leader, Senator McConnell, Minority Leader, Senator Schumer, and Senators Corker and Flake that they would not vote to table the bill, which means that they would vote to allow the bill that's pending before the Senate to come to the floor. Now, Flake had said that he was going to vote against it. So that's a change for Flake. So that should give them enough votes to get on the bill, as they say in the Senate. And then once you get on the bill and you start debating it, you can begin to offer amendments. And here's where the potential deal could come in. As long as the Senate starts to consider this slush fund in there for the president to use as he sees fit, that was giving Chuck Schumer fits. So that's when they got rid of that bill and they went for this short-term CR, which would go until February the 8th. So there's a chance here that they could reopen that negotiation and that consideration, that you give the president a smaller dollar figure, get it back to where it was earlier in the week, about $1.6 billion. The Senate passes that. You get it over to the House. The House then reconciles and syncs up with the Senate bill. You give the president a bill that says, here's $1.6 billion. Will you sign it? If they can get that all done before midnight tonight, that would be a feat. It's going to be a late night. There's no question about that. But here's the other thing, and this is where you might run into some problems, is when you offer up an amendment to pare back the $5.7 billion, you could start writing into it, well, this money can only be used for a certain type of barrier. The president tweeted out just a short time ago a picture of a steel slat barrier, which looks an awful lot like the Palisades in old pioneer forts. And there you have it. I mean, you take a look at some pictures online of Fort Vancouver, looks exactly the same, except that's made out of steel and the forts were made out of wood. So there's a certain back to the future idea with all of this. So we'll see if they can put this together. They've only got 6.5 hours to do it. It's going to be a real challenge, no question. Jedediah?
Thanks, John, so much. We'll keep our eyes on this for sure. Appreciate the update. All right, guys, what do you think about this? Now, they're saying that $1.6 billion, Jesse. That still seems like something that's kind of low, considering what Trump's looking for. Do you think they're going to be able to come together on this? And even if they can adjust the numbers, I mean, there's not a lot of time here.
Yeah, I mean, we're running out of time, but I mean, what was that? I mean, was that a development? I mean, that was probably the most horribly... what was that? Honestly, the only thing that was interesting about that is I like the new wall. If you have these things like that, do you know how much cheaper that is than a $25 billion thing that they did with the prototype? You don't have to, the Border Patrol loves this because you can see through the other side. It doesn't have to be as thick. It doesn't have to go as low under the ground. It doesn't have to go at an angle. That's actually a cheaper way to do the wall. And if we could do that with 1.6, then I think the president signs it and says done.
You think so?
Yeah.
See, I don't, and Juan, you know what I always think about when I think about this is whenever they say McConnell, Schumer, a lot of conservatives really don't have a lot of faith in Mitch McConnell to go in there. It's true, though. It's true.
Just like,
no, I mean,
I know, but like, okay, so if you look at President Trump's successes,
yeah,
especially on judges, who has done all of that? McConnell.
I agree,
but I do think that this is a way to get back into fighting the establishment because he's not good enough. I mean, part of it is that they were able to win back seats. I mean, President Trump and McConnell are actually a very good team. And this thing about the money should have been done a long time ago. The House could have passed it before. They had a $25 billion thing last February. The president decided not to sign it.
I agree with you, but that is the argument that comes out from a lot of conservative
I just feel like Mitch McConnell is like, he's like the punching bag for everybody when it's like he's actually working his tail off for President Trump and actually getting up a lot of wins that the President Trump can turn around and say, look at all the things that I accomplished that I promised in my campaign that I was able to do.
I guess somebody has to be the punching bag, right? So it comes
down
to
Juan knows.
I'm amazed. I'm this is Rock'em Sock'em Robot, and you're socking me, Greg. But, you know, to me, when you think about conservative talk radio, which is what made the president switch over and decide he's got to have this shutdown earlier in the week. I'm not sure they're going to buy it. You know, when I was watching Jesse when he was listening to John Roberts, and his face is like, well, is there going to be a wall or not a wall? Well, I don't think there's going to be a wall, and I don't think it's going to be the picture either, Jesse. I think that basically this is a save-face maneuver by Republicans trying to find a way to help the president avoid getting
It looks
slammed.
like they're going to come out and say we got a little bit more funding for border security, and maybe there's a way in that funding to find something that you can create a barrier, not the prototype, but more barriers and fencing.
Yeah, this is weak.
No, I'm just saying that looks like the strategy.
What do you think Republicans would have to do, though, Greg, to make Democrats happy and vice versa? Like, how do you actually create these two groups of people see this issue so fundamentally differently? What do you do? I mean, is it a dollar value that you have to meet? Is it a promise of future reform? What is the sticking point here?
I have no idea, because it's actually about Trump. Right? And I mean, building a wall ticks off a lot of people. Pulling out of Syria ticks off a bunch of different people. Then he breezes in and does criminal justice reform, in which no side could do. And then he bans bump stocks, which should piss off a lot of other people. That was something that the media was screaming about, but when he does it, you don't hear about it. So all of these things they don't fit into an ideological set, right? Yeah. They're all over the place because he has a vision that is untethered to ideology. So it's not about him. But I just one more point. Because Juan brings up talk radio, and it seems like, you know, or let's say Fox News, that Donald Trump hears something on Fox News or hears something on talk radio, and that influences his opinion. You could argue that, in a way, what he does, and I believe this as somebody who sits here and tries to think about the audience, that what he said, what he is getting a signal from is, what do Americans want? And he gets that from talk radio. He gets it from Fox News. We represent millions of people. So it's not like, oh, I heard Ann Coulter say this, or I heard Jesse say this, or I heard Tucker say this. It's more like that they have their finger on the pulse of America.
But it's America. The polls are clear. Americans don't want this wall.
Not true, Juan.
Please.
The American people support border security, and they don't want troops in Syria forever.
We're going to let them keep duking it out. Don't go anywhere. The 5 continues next.
News alert. The clock's ticking to avoid a partial government shutdown, but sources telling Fox News negotiations are underway on a potential deal to avoid it. This standoff over keeping the government open and not the only drama playing out on Capitol Hill. During a hearing with DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, Democratic Congressman Luis Gutierrez invoking a religion to attack Trump's immigration policies.
But it is repugnant to me and astonishing to me that during Christmas, a time in which we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, a Jesus Christ who had to flee for his life with Mary and Joseph. Thank God there wasn't a wall that stopped him from seeking refuge in Egypt. And thank God there was an administration like this, or he would have too have perished.
That guy's got a lot of charisma. I think we can give him to that. All right, so the congressman lecturing Nielsen for 6 minutes. 6 minutes. And then he walked out when she responded. Greg, I mean, that guy's got it.
I would have liked to have seen the rest of it, and he didn't listen to her.
That's rude.
That's garbage. And now I guess the left loves Christmas. All of a sudden they embrace Christmas. Here's the deal. Something like border security, something like Syria, these are issues that should be handled without emotion, because that's how you make decisions in life. You don't tackle a math problem with emotion.
Oh, yeah. How about this? They have diseases.
Yeah,
it's an invasion of America. Oh, boy, they're coming across. Oh, my gosh.
No,
these people are terrible.
A weak border is actually something that you can deal rationally with. When a country is allowing criminals to come over, you can deal with that rationally. You're tackling it as an emotional thing the same way he is, and what that does is that makes it hard to debate it, and he knows that.
No, but what I was saying to you was, that was Trump's language about it. It was highly emotional, polarizing, and intended to stir his base, both during 2016 and during the midterms.
Did Trump bring Jesus into the border debate?
I don't think so. I don't think he
Not
goes
yet.
to church much.
Oh, Juan.
But you asked me the question. I answered it to you.
Very nice.
Okay, all right.
He's extremely devout.
Okay, all right.
He said the Bible's the best book besides The Art of the Deal.
Yes.
Yeah?
I think
Jedediah,
They're both ghostwritten.
How about Rising Waters?
When you coming soon, when you inject Jesus into a political debate,
Oh, yeah.
doesn't that usually mean you've kind of lost the argument?
Republicans never do that, by the way.
Never. Especially Rick Santorum.
I give you points. Honest man.
I hate when they do it.
No,
on
I mean
both
when it's
sides.
something that has nothing to do with faith or culture. It has
Right,
something
it's
to do with
twisted and
policy.
contorted
Keep stretching,
to
Jesse.
talk- I actually think, listen, I think you're right, though. I do. I think both sides do it, not only with religion, but everybody's talking to the camera is the problem. He's talking to the camera. Spartacus is talking to the camera. Everybody now, it's less about solving the problems and more about whether you can sell your argument and who you can demonize to media, to people out there, how we're going to pick up on the story and paint them. Everybody wants to be a television star. And that's why nothing gets solved, because he's more interested in how many clicks he's going to get from making that ridiculous comment
And you know
about
what?
Jesus
He got
about
it.
solving it.
He
And
got
he
on the
did.
five.
And here we're talking
Congrats,
about him.
Luis.
Luis, who is retiring, not coming back. So that was maybe like
was
his
his-
last
that was
comment.
it. That was
Maybe.
it?
That was
One
my final.
Went out with a bang,
Final
Luis.
word.
Well done. Stay right there. Fan Mail Friday with Mr. Gutfeld.
Hooray!
Up next.
Mr. Gut, what are you?
I am not for colds.
I am not for just treating my symptoms.
I am for shortening colds when I'm sick with Zicam.
Zicam is completely different.
Unlike most other cold medicines, Zicam is clinically proven to shorten colds.
Can you guess what kind of music that is?
No.
It's on hold music.
What?
Oh.
Yes, on hold.
That's true.
I like that music.
Yes, all right. Fan Mail Friday, first question. When someone cuts in line that you've been waiting in, do you confront or just let it go? Dana? I think you confront.
Sort of depends on my mood. Like I might just give one of these, like a "excuse me,"
Yeah.
and then they're like, "Oh, so sorry." Other times I just let it go.
What about you, Jesse?
I'm usually the cutter.
How did I know that?
I'm the illegal immigrant. Cut the whole line.
Yeah.
But what do you do, Juan?
I just stew about it because, I mean, the thing is people recognize me. So if I do anything,
Yeah,
oh,
true.
The write-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's like if my wife is there, they can forget. They're going to get an earful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I let it go, but I fester inside,
Yeah.
and then I make sounds like,
Passive aggressive.
Passive-aggressive, totally.
Hey, you know what? I'll be honest. It depends the size. if I think I can take that person, I'm going to say something. So that narrows it down to about 3 people in New York.
I thought you meant the size of the line. I was like,
Size of the line. No, but if somebody cuts in
that's
front,
true,
you got to
that's
make
true.
sure that they're not on drugs. They're not violent.
But you know, there's line karma, so or like a line bank. So like, if you let somebody, oh please go ahead.
Yeah.
Right. Then when you need to cut in line, they might just let that might happen. to you.
That's what you
know
think,
what I mean?
Dana.
Yeah, I get very obnoxious.
These guys finish last.
If you can imagine me being obnoxious, I do get obnoxious. Here's another one. This is from You Shall Always Be Savvy. Interesting name. This is a great question, and I'm going to go to Jesse first. Name one person that you think is smarter than you.
How long do we have? I'm going to go with Jordan Peterson because I heard him speak in front of me. I had to follow this guy. And wow, what a difference in style Jordan and I have.
That's like following War and Peace with highlights.
Oh, man. He was good, though. He was pretty good. Very smart man.
Compliment to you. Actually.
I didn't take it that way. I love highlights.
Yeah, you are either, I don't know if you're goofus or gallant. I think you're goofus.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, oh, my God.
I watch Sports Center.
All right, and name one person, Jedediah, smarter than you.
there are many, but Thomas Sowell comes to mind.
Oh, that's a good one.
He is
Very
brilliant.
good.
Yeah, he's really
Absolutely
smart.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's better.
How about you, Juan? See, I know
Obama?
you better than you know yourself.
You think he's smarter than you?
Yeah,
he's
he's
really
really
Don't sell yourself
You go there
short.
with Kyle.
Well, the petting zoo.
I disagree. Dana?
My husband Peter, by far.
Oh, very good, very good. You know who I'm going to say?
Dilbert.
Dilbert, right? He's good. He's got a good persuasive mind. Scott Adams. I'll put him. I'll say he's smarter than me. All right, from Frenchy Firecracker. It's been a while. If you could build a theme hotel, what would your theme be? I know what Jedediah is going to say, so I'll go to her first.
No, you don't.
Yes, I know exactly what you're going to say.
You don't, actually. I would say amusement parks so I could play on the rides all night. I'm a big kid.
I thought it would be like an animal theme park.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah. See,
That's way better.
I know you better than you know yourself.
Oh, I've been hanging out with you way too long.
You could go there with Kyle.
It could be like a petting zoo. Yes, Kyle and I could travel there together for a field trip. Thank you for the great idea.
Yeah. Dana, theme?
I think that I would do one where you just go around all night doing good works for other people.
You know, I have to toss now to Mitch McConnell because we haven't had enough of politics. Go for it. Or no.
Requires 60 votes here in the Senate. It's been clear from the beginning that two things are necessary. Support from enough Senate Democrats to pass the proposal at 60 and a presidential signature. As a result, the Senate has voted to proceed the legislation before us in order to preserve maximum flexibility for productive conversation to continue between the White House and our Democratic colleagues. I hope Senate Democrats will work with the White House on an agreement that can pass both houses of Congress and receive the president's signature. So, colleagues, when an agreement is reached,
Can you guess what kind of music that is?
No.
It's on hold music.
What?
Oh.
Yes, on hold.
I like that music.
Yes, all right. Fan Mail Friday, first question. When someone cuts in line that you've been waiting in, do you confront or just let it go? Dana? I think you confront.
Sort of depends on my mood. Like, I might just give one of these, like a, excuse me.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, so sorry. Other times I just let it go.
What about you, Jesse?
I'm usually the cutter.
How did I know that?
I'm the illegal immigrant. Cut the whole line.
Yeah.
What do you do, Juan?
I just stew about it because, I mean, the thing is people recognize me. So if I do anything,
It's a write-up. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so it's like if my wife is there, they can forget. They're going to get an earful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I let it go, but I fester inside,
Yeah.
and then I make sounds like,
Passive aggressive.
Totally.
Hey, you know what? I'll be honest. It depends the size. if I think I can take that person, I'm going to say something. That narrows it down to about 3 people in New York.
Oh, you had the size of the line.
Size of the line. No, but if somebody cuts in front, you got to make sure that they're not on drugs. They're not violent.
But, you know, there's line karma, so or like a line bank. So, like, if you let somebody, oh, please, go ahead.
Yeah.
Right? Then when you need to cut in line, they might just let that might happen.
That's what you think, Dana.
Yeah, I get very obnoxious.
These guys finish last.
If you can imagine me being obnoxious, I do get obnoxious. Here's another one. This is from You Shall Always Be Savvy. Interesting name. This is a great question, and I'm going to go to Jesse first. Name one person that you think is smarter than you.
How long do we have? I'm going to go with Jordan Peterson because I heard him speak in front of me. I had to follow this guy. And wow, what a difference in style Jordan and I have.
That's like following War and Peace with highlights.
Oh, man. He was good, though. He was pretty good. Very smart man.
Compliment to you, actually.
I didn't take it that way. I love highlights.
Yeah, you are either, I don't know if you're goofus or gallant. I think you're goofus.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, oh, my God.
I watch Sports Center.
All right, and name one person, Jedediah, smarter than you.
There are many, but Thomas Sowell comes to mind.
Oh, that's a good one.
He is
Very
brilliant.
good.
Yeah, he's really smart.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's better.
How about you, Juan? See, I know you better than you know yourself.
You think he's smarter than you?
Yeah,
You don't sell yourself
go there with Kyle. I disagree. Dana?
My husband, Peter, by far.
Oh, very good, very good. You know who I'm going to say? Dilbert. Right? He's good. He's got a good persuasive mind. Scott Adams. I'll put him up. I'll say he's smarter than me. All right. From Frenchie Firecracker. It's been a while. If you could build a theme hotel, what would your theme be? I know what Jedediah is going to say, so I'll go to her first.
No, you don't.
Yes, I know exactly what you're going to say.
You don't, actually. I would say amusement park so I could play on the rides all night. I'm a big kid.
I thought it would be like an animal theme park.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah. See, I know.
Better.
I know you better than you know yourself.
Oh, I've been hanging out with you way too long.
You could go there with Kyle.
It could be like a petting zoo. Yes, Kyle and I could travel there together for a field trip. Thank you for the great idea.
Yeah. Dana, theme?
I think that I would do one where you just go around all night doing good works for other people.
You know, I have to toss now to Mitch McConnell because we haven't had enough of politics. Go for it. Or not.
Requires 60 votes here in the Senate. It's been clear from the beginning that two things are necessary. Support from enough Senate Democrats to pass the proposal at 60 and a presidential signature. As a result, the Senate has voted to proceed the legislation before us in order to preserve maximum flexibility for productive conversation to continue between the White House and our Democratic colleagues. I hope Senate Democrats will work with the White House on an agreement that can pass both houses of Congress and receive the president's signature. So, colleagues, when an agreement is reached,